Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part two of this series in which I'm reviewing a conversation between Candace Owens and Destiny. My name is, of course, Michael Granado. I'm a history and philosophy educator. The conversation between Owens and Destiny is focused on this question of college. Now, in the last video, I kind of honed in on Owens's argument, a really odd argument that literacy rates are declining, and Owen's suggestion that college has something to do with the declining of literacy rates, that college graduates are less literate than non-college graduates. As I showed in that last video, there's really not a whole lot of empirical foundation for those sorts of claims. If you disagree with that, you can, I'll link that previous video in the description of this video, and you're more than welcome to go argue with me, as others already have been doing in the comments section of that video. Now, this video, I'm going to focus on a separate part of the conversation. So, as I said before, the conversation starts off with this issue of college literacy rates. And here it's kind of morphing into a more broader question about the value of college and the general question of whether or not people should be going to college in the first place. And that's the big question that I'm going to be analyzing for this video. Now, in this segment of the conversation, in order to answer that question, I think both Owens and Destiny are kind of missing the big point here, which I'll kind of get to in the latter part of this video. But the focus of their conversation is going to be the cost of college tuition and the average amount of debt that people who graduate from college, the amount of debt that they graduate with. To be clear, both of those things are incredibly important in the decision-making process. I don't want to underemphasize. I say that they're missing their point. I'll elaborate on that a bit, but let me cover those first 2 points, and then we'll get into the larger question that I want to raise. And I want to use this video to speak to people that are maybe asking this question, whether or not they should go to college, as a way to sort of navigate that conversation. But let's go ahead and jump into the discussion, and I'll make some responses to both Destiny and Owens here.
Do the research in your
I
own
have done
time.
the research.
Like,
on my own
I'm
time.
happy
That's
to.
just not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
Just what I said. As an owner of a college degree, median wage
that
comparing
doesn't
to that
mean just
person is
because you
like
own a. You can go to college for 4 years and spend $100,000 getting a degree in gender studies. Please do not tell me that you believe that that person is educated
first of all,
or
hold on,
highly literate.
Well,
like
more than half
a
of degrees awarded are awarded for STEM-related things. Number one. Number two, $100,000 is a way over the average we're paying for any degree.
Well, that's what I paid.
And
so I'm just.
What did you go to school for?
The average annual, as far as I'm concerned, you can look this up. But if you are going to school, you're probably spending in America about $30,000 a year, minimally, if you're out of state.
Isn't the average amount
just look it up? You got Google, right? What state are we in?
Isn't the
what state are we in? Miami? Let's go to look up University of Florida. Pardon. What state are we in? Florida?
Yeah.
All right. So the first question that they're going back and forth about is the average cost of annual college tuition. We have this claim by Owens that the average annual cost is about $30,000 a year. And as a result, people are exiting college with about $100,000 worth of student loan debt. I don't want to get too hung up on the details. However, I do think it's important to talk about the cost of college tuition. So Owens referenced the University of Florida. Her claim is that the average cost of out-of-state tuition is around $30,000 a year. She is right about that. Destiny's a little bit confused and kind of challenges that claim. It is odd that she's referencing out-of-state tuition. She is correct. Destiny's kind of rebuttal or response to that is to call that into question. I mean, Owens is correct. She says, why don't you admit that I'm right? Anyway, Destiny's response is that people rarely pay the out-of-pocket cost for that, meaning that people typically get tuition assistance in the forms of scholarships and stuff like that. Whether or not he's right about that is kind of besides the point. There is this question about about why is Owens focusing on out-of-state tuition. As you can see here from this chart, in-state tuition is significantly cheaper than out-of-state tuition. And that's going to be the case not just for the University of Florida, but for every public university. In-state tuition is significantly cheaper. In this case, the in-state tuition for the University of Florida is, this is as of 2023, I believe, and we'll just round up here to about $7,000 as opposed to out-of-state tuition, which is $29,000 annually. So there are multiple things to take into consideration when deciding whether or not to go to college. And so for the sake of argument, until we get to the last bit of this video, let's assume that you are considering going to college. One of the first big questions is, where are you going to go to school? And you have this consideration between in-state versus out-of-state. Now, for most people, let's say that you're interested in going to school for something very practical, career-oriented. You want to go to work in the medical field, or you want to be a teacher, or to go into social work, or to go into law or engineering, something along those lines. There are very few reasons why you should be considering an out-of-state school. So let's talk about some of those reasons. So why would you go to an out-of-state school versus an in-state school? Well, for one, there might be a specific program that you're looking at. Certain universities have specialty programs or might be known for their specific program. Now, I can only speak to the area that I'm in. So different philosophy programs have different areas of expertise that their faculty are kind of congregated around, but that's typically for grad school. And generally speaking, for undergraduate, it doesn't make that much of a difference unless you're trying to get into some Ivy League school or trying to get into some private school, private art school, or STEM school that relates to a very specific area that you're interested in. But if in general you're just going for something like a nursing degree, it doesn't really matter where you go to school because you're guaranteed to get a job in that area. So in-state versus out-of-state, it's almost always the better idea to choose in-state simply because of tuition costs. Now, there might be other reasons why people are choosing to go to school out of state. So for example, if you live in the state of Georgia and you have family in New York, family that you want to be close to, you might choose to go to school in New York, and you might choose to pay out-of-state tuition for personal reasons. But in pure academic reasons, for an undergraduate degree, I can't really think of a lot of reasons. As a instructor, I really wouldn't recommend that somebody go to an out-of-state school unless they have their heart set on a specific program. And even then, I would make them aware of the fact that, as you can see here, there is a significant price difference that you're going to pay for out-of-state tuition.
51%.
You're not going to get hurt.
So 51% of bachelor's degree students graduate with an average of $29,400 in student loan debt, right? So that's only 51% of people, I guess, that acquired debt, and then their average debt is about $29,400.
Are you? I don't get what the point is of you doing this.
The point
are you trying to say?
The point I'm saying is that, one, the stick.
Well, I think the general point is you were saying that it was $100,000 earlier. But Destiny's pointed out that the average for graduation is $30,000. I mean, those are both still really big numbers, so maybe it's a minor point. But anyway, back to the conversation.
Sticker price for an out-of-state tuition school is not what I would use as the median price you need to pay for a four-year degree. Number one. Number two, very few people actually pay.
We didn't talk about that because I said this is the median price. I said it is utterly absurd that people are spending $100,000 to come out with a degree. We weren't talking about, we weren't debating the median price.
Sure, but number one,
okay, yeah. So some what could be considered relatively minor discrepancies here. So the average student loan debt that the person graduating with a bachelor's of arts degree is going to graduate with is roughly around $40,000, $37,000, typically speaking, $54,000, $55,000 for private schools. This is coming from the Education Data Initiative. I'll link that website if you want to reference it. Owens is fixated on this out-of-state sticker cost. Of course, she reveals that the reason why is because that's what she paid, because she chose to go to an out-of-state school. And this is the national average. There's going to be variation between individuals. Not that that really matters a whole lot for this conversation. What I think Owens's general point is, which is a good one, is that whether you're talking about $40,000, whether you're talking about $100,000, there is a significant cost to going to college, and most people should expect a significant amount of debt from going to college. Not only should individuals expect to leave college with a significant amount of debt, but also college tuition rates have been steadily increasing since the early 2000s. On average, I think it's like 10 to 13% every year. College tuition is the highest that it's ever been. And unfortunately, for students in high school right now, and for basically all future students in the United States, it's not going to get any cheaper. So Owens's point stands, and that general point is that college is extraordinarily expensive, and that's a fact that's not going to change anytime soon. Which leads to the second consideration, the second financial consideration. Well, given this debt, given the expense, is it financially worth it to go to college? And Destiny kind of has some pushback against Owens's claim here.
Yeah, but we're talking about, I'm sure, and I could probably find people with $1 million student loan debt that got an even dumber degree than gender studies and basketball or whatever. But in general, that's not the cost of a college degree. And in general, college degrees confer huge wage premiums onto the people that earn them. These are like,
no, they don't. And that is the reason why you have so many young women that are, and this is why, I think that what you actually do here is harmful. And I'm going to tell you,
okay, let me explain. Hold on, I'm sorry, because I've done a lot of research on college degrees and a lot of research on education, and every single thing that you're saying sounds really good on like a culture war perspective. But when you look at an actual economic perspective, when you look at actual firms that hire people, and when you look at the actual median wages compared to people that even have some college education, all of it is me going to school. All of it, that's great for you, but for the average American, that's just not true. None of these numbers are found on average. You will never find data that supports the idea that high school earners on average are out-earning college degree earners, or that 90% of people are going to school for basket weaving.
Do not listen to him.
Why would you go to trade school?
Learn a real craft.
Why would you go to trade school?
Please go to trade school. Please do not end up, and I talk about this on stage the whole time, and I'm on the universities. I did 2 universities this year. Please, if you do not know what you want to do not go spend a ton of money putting yourself in debt to go into society, already having debts that you need to pay off, to make $25,000 a year in a career path that you didn't even know that you wanted to take.
Why would a 4-year degree
because you're listening
$25,000
to Destiny. Like, and by the way,
idea that the claim made by Destiny that Owens objected to is that in general, the cost of a college degree confers a huge wage premium on the people that get them, meaning that generally speaking, people who go to college tend to make more money over the course of life, or make more money on average per year than those who do not go to college. And Owens objects and says that's not true. Okay, so let's deal with that claim first, and then we'll talk about the whole culture war / you should go to trade school rather than college argument. Anyway, okay, so is it true that people who go to college tend to make more money than people who do not go to college? Generally speaking, broadly speaking, Destiny is correct here. And when I say Destiny is correct here, this is based purely on data. This is not like secret information. I'm showing you one example here. This is data collected by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. You can reference other studies that talk about this, but broadly, and again, we're generalizing here. Undoubtedly there's going to be somebody in the comments that says, well, I'm a plumber and I make X, Y, and Z, which is going to be more than what I make, for example, or what other people who graduate from college makes. And there are probably multiple examples that you could point to of somebody who did not go to college that is making bukus of money, that might be a millionaire. But this is broad data. So for example, if this is coming from the chart that I have pulled up on screen here that I'll link in the description, this is coming from 2023. The median income of a bachelor's degree in 2023 was $60,000 versus the median of a high school diploma was $36,000. So about a $20,000 difference annually speaking. Over the course of a lifetime, you can see how that would add up very quickly. Now, of course, like I said before, there's always going to be exceptions to that. But generally speaking, the data that we do have, Destiny is 100% correct. People with college degrees, regardless of what that college degree is, tend to make more money than those without. So Owens's pushback is, well, if you don't know what you want to do, and this again is based off of those tuition costs, is based off of that debt, that if you don't know what you want to do, that you should not go to college, that instead you should learn to trade or go to trade school. And Destiny pushes back against that. Why would you go to trade school if people with college degrees are making more money? I think this whole distinction, I don't know how this has been co-opted into like political discourse, but you have this whole thing like trade school versus college, that you should go to one rather than the other. And this relates to the overarching point that I want to make. So let me make this point and get back to the whole trade school versus college. So the original question, what is the value of college, or should you as an individual go to college? Is it worth it for you to go to college? This conversation has been framed by Owens and Destiny and framed financially speaking. And finances, I want to be very clear, are super important. And perhaps, this is a legitimate concern. We're not really, from a K through 12 perspective, it's not that we're not teaching finance. There are financial classes offered in high schools. I used to work at a high school that offered financial classes to high school students. The issue is we're expecting these high schoolers, these young 15 to 18-year-olds, to make these huge financial decisions that, even if they intellectually understand, it's difficult for a high schooler to grasp the value of money because they have no horse in the race quite yet. They're living with their parents. They're not making their own financial decisions. They don't know what it means to have to pay rent, to pay bills, all that good stuff. So even if we educate them financially, the issue is not so much with the knowledge that they're being taught. They should be taught financial classes. But also the issue is with the sort of responsibilities that we confer upon high schoolers. So there undoubtedly needs to be more training in that within the high school system. But finances aside, the question that both Owens and Destiny are ignoring, that you as an individual have to ask yourself when dealing with this question of should I go to college, is what is it that you want to do with your life? What are your values? Another thing that high schoolers don't realize, this is something that most people don't realize until they become adult and they understand. There's a phrase by David Foster Wallace about the day in and day outness of adult life. What a lot of high schoolers don't realize, because a lot of high schoolers haven't experienced this, is how much of your life work is going to take up. 40 hours a week at minimum. That's not taking into consideration commute time, the time it takes you to prepare for your work. Most of your weekly life as an adult is going to be consumed by and focused around work. So the most important question here, even that I encourage students to ask themselves before they start dealing with the financial question, is what exactly it is that they want out of life. What do they want to do in their life? What are their values? And in this case, I would agree with Owens. If you don't know if you want to go to college, or if you don't have a clear career path in mind, then college is just going to get you in a massive amount of debt that you may or may not eventually utilize. But is trade school any different? If you don't know that you want to go to college, do you know that you want to go to trade school? I don't see how that's any better other than it might cost you a little less financially, but it's still going to cost you the same amount of time that you won't be able to get back. What's the difference between investing 4 years into a college degree or investing 4 years into a trade? Yes, the college degree might cost more money, but a more physically demanding trade might cost you aspects of your health, something that you can't recuperate monetarily speaking. Trade school may be cheaper and it may offer you something, a skill that you're able to fall back on 100%, but college can also offer you that. I'm not sure that there's that big of a difference. So for me, the question is not college versus trade school. The question for you should be, what is it that you want to do? And what are your values? And by values, I mean, going back to that question about work being the place that you're going to spend a majority of your time as an adult, what do you want out of life? Are you somebody who values, for example, working with your hands? Are you somebody that gets meaning out of building and construction things? In that case, trade school is probably the right option. Conversely, are you somebody that has certain medical conditions that would prevent you from doing that sort of work? Then obviously trade school is not a good option. The whole reason why I made this video, the point that both Destiny and Owens are ignoring, the question that ought to come first is, well, what exactly is it that you want to do with your life? Your answer to that question is going to point you, should you go to college? Do you have to go to college in order to do those things? Some careers you need a college degree for. If you want to be a medical professional, if you want to work in law, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a social worker, all of those require college educations. You cannot do jobs related to those areas without getting a college degree. Do you want to work in construction? Do you want to work as an electrician, as a plumber, as a carpenter? Well, obviously, you can go to trade school for that. Are all of these financial considerations important? Of course they are. But I would encourage anyone listening to this who's considering to go to college that the more important question, the thing you need to figure out first, is what exactly you want to do. And there's some options for that. If you're interested, that might be worth investing your time and money. One big example, and this is not like a paid advertisement or anything, would be websites like UScience. These are like career aptitude tests that might give you some suggestions and give you some resources about what you should be pursuing. A lot of my students also take gap years in which they pursue internships, working in the fields that they're considering. I had one student that did multiple internships in different areas to figure out what they want. And in that case, it was tremendously beneficial for that person. I would highly encourage that. It all depends. So anyway, let me know what you think. What do you typically ask somebody? What's the general advice you give to somebody who's considering college? What directions do you tend to point them? What are some questions that helped you in your college journey or your career journey? What do you think about this debate between Owens and Destiny? Let me know what you think, and I will see you all next time.